Imagine a room filled with senators. The air is heavy, tense, and reeking of betrayal. A man in a white robe walks in with a determined stride. He smiles at those who, at least in his eyes, he still considers his friends, his comrades in arms, the pillars of his glory. But seconds later, that smile will disappear, swallowed by the blades of the daggers piercing his body. His name is Julius Caesar, and his blood, flowing on the floor of the Roman Senate, will be a turning point in world history. Rome in the 1st century BC was not the stable and majestic city many imagine. Beneath its cobblestone streets and imposing temples, the Republic was disintegrating. The Senate's power was being eroded. The people were suffering. Generals were driven by ambition, and corruption spread like a plague. Out of this chaos emerged a young man named Gaius Julius Caesar, a descendant of nobility whose life was not always smooth sailing. He was more than just a spoiled son of a noble family. Caesar grew up with a keen eye and a restless mind. He realized early on that power came not only from the sword, but also from words. The young Caesar was a masterful orator. When he stood and spoke, people were riveted. His words pierced, incised passion, and ignited the imagination of the common people. He was a master of words, captivating hearts, and instilling the promise of a brighter future for Rome. But it wasn't just words that defined him. Caesar was also a brave warrior. He was once kidnapped by pirates, and with characteristic arrogance, he promised to return to hunt them down after his release. He kept his promise. The pirates were captured and crucified. From then on, people began to see Caesar was not only a skilled speaker, but also a fearless man. Rome was a war machine in its time. Anyone who could conquer territory, bringing home gold, slaves, and glory, would be revered. Caesar capitalized on this brilliantly. He led legions into Gaul, a vast region that now encompasses France, Belgium, parts of Switzerland, and even Britain. It was there that Caesar demonstrated his military genius. He wrote detailed war diaries, not only to record history but also to build his own image. He turned every victory into legend. Every defeated enemy became proof of his superiority. The Roman people were captivated. They saw an invincible general, a hero who would elevate Rome's name higher than ever before. But beneath the popular praise, the senators lurked fear. They worried. This man was too powerful. Julius Caesar was not only a soldier and politician, he was also a man of charm. His love affair with Cleopatra, the enchanting queen of Egypt, became a legend in itself. Cleopatra was more than just a romantic partner. She was a symbol of political unity, diplomatic strategy, and personal ambition. This relationship made Caesar even more dangerous in the eyes of the Senate. Imagine a Roman general, lover of the Queen of Egypt, with the support of the common people, a loyal army, and captivating oratory skills. It was a lethal combination for anyone seeking to maintain the status quo in the Republic. So when Caesar returned to Rome, bringing with him the glory of Gaul and the glamour of Egypt, his actions shook the political foundations of the Republic. The senators knew this was no mere general. This was a man who might change Rome forever. In 49 BC, Caesar faced a fateful choice. The Senate, increasingly fearful of his influence, ordered him to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. This would have meant giving up all power and potentially facing trial. Caesar gazed at the Rubicon River, a border no general could cross with his army. He knew that crossing it would mean civil war, but with one firm step, he uttered the legendary words, Alia iacta est, the die had been cast. Civil war broke out. Blood flowed. Brother fought brother. But as usual, Caesar won. His opponents, including Pompey, lost. The Roman Republic was practically in the hands of one man, Julius Caesar. But to senators accustomed to power, Caesar was a tyrant in the making. They whispered in dark chambers, if this man wasn't stopped, the Republic would die, and Rome would be reborn as an empire under a king. And to Roman ears, the word king was anathema. They prided themselves on republicanism, on collective rule, and rejected a single absolute ruler. Thus, the people's love for Caesar clashed with the nobility's fear of his power. This victory allowed Caesar to take a further step. He declared himself dictator for life, a resounding title, but also a dangerous one. To the common people, Caesar was a savior. He forgave debts, distributed land, and built massive projects that created jobs. He brought stability after decades of war and intrigue. Behind the majestic pillars of the Senate, a group of people began to plan something. They called themselves liberatores, liberators. Among them was Marcus Junius Brutus, Caesar's friend, whom he considered like his own son. Ironically, it was Brutus who ultimately became the symbol of betrayal. The senators seduced Brutus, convincing him that this was for the sake of the Republic, for the sake of liberty. Did Brutus hesitate? Of course. But as the days passed, he became more and more convinced if Caesar was not stopped, Rome would be destroyed. So it was decided, Caesar must die.
On March 15, 44, BC, the Ides of March, Rome was shrouded in a strange atmosphere. Many ominous omens abounded. Caesar's wife, Calpurnia, even begged him not to go to the Senate that day. She had dreamed of seeing Caesar's statue bleeding, but Caesar, in his arrogance, laughed off the premonition. He stepped into the Senate. The conspirators greeted him with feigned friendliness. As Caesar sat down, a senator pretended to approach with a request. And suddenly, the first dagger pierced his body. Caesar was shocked, his body stiff, his eyes wildly searching for answers. A second dagger, a third, a fourth, until finally dozens of stabs had ripped through his body. Blood spattered, covering the marble floor. But the deepest stab came not from the enemy's weapon, but from Brutus, the man he trusted, the man he loved like a son. In a weak voice, Caesar uttered the words that would echo throughout history. Et tu, Brute, you too, Brutus. And with that, Caesar fell. Rome lost its genius. The senators thought they had saved the Republic. They thought that by killing Caesar, freedom would return. But the reality was far more cruel. The people were furious. They saw the senators not as heroes, but as traitors who had murdered their savior. The flames of anger burned through Rome. Chaos reigned, and from that void new figures emerged. Mark Antony, Octavian, later Augustus, and civil war tore Rome apart once again. Ironically, by killing Caesar for the sake of the Republic, the senators actually hastened its rebirth as an empire. This is the bitterest irony. Julius Caesar died so that the Republic could live, but with his death the Republic truly died. From Caesar's ashes arose an empire that was stronger, more absolute, and more enduring. And Brutus, the traitor who supposedly acted for freedom, he himself was ultimately pursued, defeated, and committed suicide. His name will go down in history not as a savior, but as an eternal symbol of betrayal. Caesar's tragedy, then, is a double tragedy. He was betrayed by his own friend, and his blood shed in the Senate laid the foundation for the birth of the magnificent Roman Empire.